we have Macon Blair in real life.
Hi, guys.
For everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming. Jeremy, I know we told you that that you wouldn't be able to hear the questions, but we actually set up a mic so that people can actually ask you the question, you can hear it, and it would be much better than me trying to like sum up what they asked, I'm sure.
That's great. I'm just sort of, with this audio delay, just kind of trip making up while he's there live.
Glitch.
And he's teasing you. Wonderful. It's gonna go great. I'm excited. Well, awesome. So I am dumb and was unaware that this was all based on a book, or like drawn from a book. So
Dumb, there's a lot of stuff to keep track of.
It's a lot, man. Pop culture's hard. Can you guys kind of just talk about what drew you to this story and why you wanted to make it into a film?
Can he see me?
I don't know.
Yeah, you first, Macon.
You're looking at me now like this?
Yeah, I'm doing my reverse direction so I can kind of look down at you.
Got it. Okay.
It's perfect.
It's so weird. I read this book and it kind of plowed me as a reader, and it was partly the horrific, very terrifying nature of it, and also the sort of it just, to me, it had a very beautiful human sort of side to it, and also in a very mercenary way, I was trying to find a piece of material that could be adapted specifically for Jeremy to direct. So got the book. It seemed to really fit both of those very precisely, and so I gave it to him, and we pursued it very energetically, trying to like convince the people that control the rights to give us permission to make it, and they relented, or they agreed.
And actually, there were a lot less hurdles we expected in that Macon and I had just done Blue Ruin a couple of years prior and wrapped Green Room. We had not yet edited it, so Macon got his hands on material, I think it's way back in 2015, California, and he was really struck by it and handed it off to me, and by the time I got around to reading it, I think a couple of months later, I was like, well, how do we do this? Because we had never really entered the industry officially as far as standard protocols. And it was surprisingly easy. We just I called up my agent, and I said, well, we're all at the same agency, so how does this work? And then she just put me on hold for 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and said, Macon's attached to write the adaptation, and you're attached to direct. So that was the easy part, but it was pretty fun to kind of finally have that access where you like something and you can actually attain it.
That's really cool. I don't know how any of that stuff works, so that's awesome that it happened so quickly for you guys. So one of our audience members kind of touched on this while we were waiting for the credits to roll, or finish rolling. But there's a lot of wolf imagery throughout the film, and I'm sure that that's also included in the book. But can you guys kind of talk about how because like the Sloans kind of embody the wolves. And can you kind of talk about like how you incorporated that into the story and made it so fluid? I really liked that.
You good?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, it was sometimes in the book, as a sort of literary adaptation, things almost became, well, literal, in that I had to visually sometimes pull back because the likening Vernon Sloan to a wolf was too direct at times, because the way Skarsgård moved was pretty lupine.
It's very majestic.
Yeah, but no, I just sort of, I think Macon, of course, did a really faithful adaptation of material, and that was up to me to visualize, but he really got detailed. And the iconography and all, the wolf mask that Sloan wears, Medora's mask, and even the mask Sloan wears in the Iraq desert when he's first introduced. William Giraldi was an amazing resource throughout this. So, as
author of the book.
Yeah, as someone who's taking their job very seriously to translate this and to do it justice, it was great to go through Macon, who could then touch base with Geraldi when I needed answers and when I needed help. And as far as the full depth and breadth, you're never going to get that from a movie. And that was about fine-tuning some of the more literal connections and pulling back and making it more subtle, not stating a few things that we had photographed and recorded as far as exposition and detailing the history of the mask and its origins. It just became, I think, my primary goal was to have this sort of really strong undercurrent that I felt when I read the novel, and that Macon did too, and just pull back a little bit visually. Because if you try and add everything together at the end or throughout, it sort of lessens the power of the mystery.
I would just say that there was sort of a balance in the book, and what I think we were trying to strike in the movie too is like it really is meant to be open to interpretation, and if you want to believe that there's a mystical, like if their bloodline is actually cursed, then that works. If you want to approach it from a more sociological, like these are people without a lot of resources or avenues of escape, and they are under a great deal of pressure, and something snapped in that family, then it doesn't need to be a supernatural reason for everything that happened, and they're both equally valid. It's kind of it's whatever you want it to be.
That's really interesting. I'm definitely not like a super spiritual person, so I tend to go with like, oh well, you live in Alaska and it's like dark all the time. Of course you're crazy. So like, I definitely tend to go more that direction with it, but I can definitely see how it's like so you could make either connection with it.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
Yeah, not wanting to sort of spell it out was part of that was what we had pitched, was like the book is very mysterious and kind of vexing at times, and what we said was that we wanted to do that and not tie it up neatly.
Yeah, I love that. I really appreciate that as an audience member.
Some people do.
Yeah. I don't need to be spoon-fed when I'm supposed to think. I like to think it out myself, personally. It seemed like you might have had something to add to that, Jeremy. Did you?
No.
Okay, that's all right. So clearly you guys have got the like suspenseful thriller down pat. You've done it before, you do it really well. Have you thought about like going in, making a thriller comedy or something else, like something kind of different but with the same sort of feel to it?
Macon did.
I mean, we kind of started making really goofy, ridiculous, dumb comedies, and then for a while we had a short film that was a very sort of melancholy slice of life comedy, and then Jeremy's first feature was sort of a horror movie, but I feel like it primarily functioned as a comedy. So yeah, that's sort of, this was the first one where we didn't really try and shoehorn jokes into, you know what I mean? Like this was, the tone was really important here.
The soup joke lands pretty well for me. I think that was that's funny.
It landed pretty well here too.
That's the only one. Yeah, it felt like this was not the movie to be like, also we're having a good time. Right. The tone was very important. But yeah, certainly like we definitely want to do circle back around to comedies and lighter fare, which is probably where we started.
It's fun, man. I really dig it. I would love to see those shorts. I didn't or haven't been able to like look them up or find them.
We have illegally used a Black Sabbath song in one of them, so we have to remix it before we can put it out anywhere because it's not fair to the Osbournes.
Yeah, well, I would love to see it once you do that. Awesome. All right, audience members, would you like to? We have a microphone set up over here so that Jeremy can actually hear your question. If you have any questions, please walk over to the microphone. Or if you're like, no, I don't want to do that, then you can like tell us, and I can relay it. It's just,
if that's a barrier, just shout it and I'll hear it through.
I'll translate.
We have a few people coming. It's not scary, I promise. I mean, we'll start with one and you can go back to the end of the line and we'll ask more.
I don't know which one I want to ask. Macon's character's listening to black metal in this movie, and then in Green Room, it's a hardcore punk band. and I'm trying to remember, it's been a little while since I've seen Blue Ruin, but I feel like the friend he goes to visit is in a death metal band, possibly, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, as a hardcore death metal person, where does that come from? Are you guys fans, or?
For sure, yeah. It's just sort of growing up with that music. Yeah, you have a great eye for detail. Yeah, Ben is wearing a Night Witch t-shirt.
Yeah.
In Blue Ruin, and yeah, it's just sort of like when it's possible and when it's appropriate for what's going on. Is it correct to say that we like to put in the tunes that we grew up loving?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a background. You know, my high school friends have a background in music, and I try to get down with that by being the yeller in their band for a brief stint. So it's punk rock, hardcore stuff. It definitely defined my youth, but you know, I think even today, I was really in it for the physicality and just to be with people, going across the bridge into Washington D.C., like weighing down a Dodge Omni with like 5 dudes averaging 180 pounds, and just coming back from a death metal show really sweaty and having contracted the flu virus. It was good times. But I defer to my buddies often. You know, I definitely shoplifted a lot of albums from the record tape exchange outside of Alexandria, Virginia. But I looked to my friends for the specific bands. And even today, you know, Macon and I are really close collaborators, especially in my process. He's an encyclopedia from casting. He knows every actor in town. And he has this amazing knowledge of music. So he's really, especially when we're on a sort of low budget mission, I always ask Macon first. I mean, I've worked with some great music supervisors, but he's sort of the inside man for me. And he suggests a lot of great work. So as far as general, yeah, it's like punk rock, hardcore, atmospheric metal, what have you. But I definitely leave a lot of it to Macon for the specifics.
Very kind.
Yeah, appreciate it.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
Big fan. Macon, you actually responded to one of my tweets like 6 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
And dude, you like made my month. I was like, a celebrity talk back to me. It was so cool. Thank you for
Tweet
that.
to me now.
All right, yeah, well, that's cool. So, how integral are you guys, or how much do you work together on the screenplays? Like, I don't feel at home in this world anymore. Kind of feels like he played a big part in it, and I just wanted to know how much you guys work together on the actual screenplay portion.
Yeah, I mean, this one, because it kind of started with, oh shit, you gotta read this book. We were immediately, like, the conversation just started about, like, this, we gotta drill down on this sequence, we should cut out here, and so we had a good long period of talking it over while we were still trying to figure out how to, you know, as he said, it turned out to just be a phone call to try and figure out how to get the rights to it. And then I kind of went off and would just write drafts and then would check in with him, and he would, you know, chime in on every single draft and sort of make it more.
You can say that I was hands off. It's okay.
Hands off on the writing process, but then when it got close to the, when we're shooting, then we would go back in together and sort of rewrite it specifically to what was going to be shot and locations, and then even as it got really late in the process, certain actors, you know, just like little, I mean, nothing that would make a huge difference, but to us it felt very essential to kind of tweak things all the way up until the day it started getting shot. Yeah, it's sort of like a constant either email or phone calls or texting of sort of like this scene, that scene, this line of dialogue. What do you think about this? It's very it's very back and forth. He should probably have a co-writer credit. Is what it should be.
Not at all. The only tweaks the whole point was to read. Look, here's my goal. This is my goal.
He's gonna disagree with me now.
I don't want to do much. I want to do as little as possible. I want to make more money. I want Macon to just like, you know, here's the platter, and here's the script, and then I just go shoot him, and then we do another one. No, Macon's always sort of been like the writer of the crew, most of what I write is by necessity, and it always has a budget ceiling. So if people say we can't make it and we don't get financing, that we can put the credit card down or do a Kickstarter campaign and make it ourselves. But for Hold the Dark, I relished the opportunity to not get too hands-on. We had a good collaborative crew. The development process was pretty easy. We had smart people giving us notes. And most of my notes throughout the entire process for Hold the Dark were strictly practical. Sometimes, like, maybe nix this one scene or combine it with another, but they weren't big. And the only time I actually got actively involved was when I would forward scout, like say for Shan's garage where Macon's character lives.
My very warm garage. It was very, very warm there.
We found this cool spot, and it had a loft instead of just like an adjacent bedroom. And so, I just would go into the screenplay and just only for production purposes, for scene headings, to break it down so the crew knew what we were doing, seamlessly translate that onto our practical sets. But other than that, I'll let Macon do the heavy lifting throughout.
And as far as Don't Feel at Home, like that was very much a product of me having sort of sat on set and watched him work for several years and just kind of gleaned every single lesson I possibly could. So it was very much influenced by that as well.
Very cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, I was just wondering, in the end scene where he's getting his arrow wound treated, there's a woman who takes his boots, or takes Vern's boots, and I just want to know what the significance of that was.
Think about it. Just think about it. Someone that either knows the answer.
It's their mom.
That's what I thought. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, gentlemen. I apologize if I start a little bit at Tourette syndrome. So,
It's
I've
great talking.
been a big fan of you guys ever since going back to Murder Party. I saw it at a film festival when I was a college student, and I love all your other works. And my question is for Jeremy. You've been a writer on the films that you've directed so far. This is you don't have write credit on this one. What is your what do you think was the biggest challenge going into something where you weren't the credited writer? Was it a different experience for you altogether? What challenges did you meet?
Yeah, that's a good question. Huge challenge. If that, usually, whether you're faking it or not, on set when you have the soul up there, you sort of from scratch, roll drafts, you analyze every line because you generated that. Actor has a question, you have an answer. But on Hold the Dark, even if I did have an answer, it wasn't necessarily the correct answer in that my actors had their own ideas. Macon and William Giraldi probably had a deeper exploration of the material than I did. So I had to fake it a little bit. But I also had to then take some time to do a deep dive and just find my own runner. See, what does this mean to me? I don't know exactly what it means to William Giraldi. We could always access his amazing brain and share everything with us in depth. But, when actors have questions and have answers, I don't just make it up. It's sort of disrespectful. So I would kind of go in and find my own way, and this film became very redemptive for me. It's sort of nihilistic and cold and brutal, and it remains so on the surface, but my way in, how I would spend over 2 years on this project was finding sort of a different path. But I really like the process. This is a very literary experience in that when I read the novel, I only go to translate that feeling. It wasn't to translate every idea and story beat and sort of introspective moment that was in the text. It was just, holy shit, what was that? I feel like I was transported. There's this amazing undercurrent of dread and beauty and naturalism. And I had these flashes and these moments that I really responded to. And that was sort of the goal to keep like that. Damn, I'm rambling. What was the question again?
Working with the writer.
And Macon, since you were the writer, how much, how much, how big was your presence on the set?
what was awesome about it was I got to sit in my house and write this freezing cold movie that then Jeremy had to go out and make and be out in the woods. But the one part that I thought I was going to get to do was going to be, again, in a very warm apartment. And so my presence on set was very minimal. I was there for like a handful of days. I shot for one day and then kind of visited for a couple more.
Okay.
So it was very minimal, which you know, on one hand I would have loved to have sort of been in the trenches with Jeremy, and on the other hand it was really cold. So.
All right, thanks a lot. I love your guys' work. Just keep it up. I really fucking love Green Room. That was like my favorite movie of the year that year.
Which film festival did you see Murder Party at?
The Three Rivers Film Festival in Pittsburgh.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh.
Deep
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think you had like multiple questions, right? Do you want to ask another one?
Yeah, I can go again for sure.
Yeah, ask another one. We have time.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Do it.
It's a once in a lifetime thing,
Maybe we
kind
can
of,
do like
sort
a
of.
two-parter. So, Blue Ruin and Green Room, like two things, motivations of the characters on either side are like very clear. Even for like the Nazis, like you're very clear why they're doing what they're doing. And same for characters on both sides in Blue Ruin. I would say in this movie, and I know this is maybe y'all's first one where you're working from outside material, I felt like the motivations were less clear, especially with like the Sloanes. Was that weird for y'all to do with y'all's experience before, where it's like really crystal clear why everybody's doing what they're doing?
Me?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, you.
No. It was no. That was a fun challenge / opportunity. I mean, the idea that like if what we were trying to do, and hopefully it worked, was that it would be more of this sort of immersive experience, which is just you're kind of in the world and these things are happening and you absolutely have questions. And for a lot of it, Core, the Jeffrey Wright character, he doesn't understand anything either, and we were hoping that he would kind of be the sort of eyes of the audience into this, what is going on here, why are people doing what they're doing, and keeping it kind of giving just enough so that people could maybe find their own path, but not so much that it was like, and this is what it is, and this is what it means, and withholding that information as part of the experience, and not to be like, oh, you don't get the answer, but just because that's how we felt reading the book, where you kind of feel like you know something, you feel like you're connected to these people in some way, you can't quite forgive what they're doing, but then there's this also kind of human connection to them in some way. And so that was very much by design. Was of course in Green Room it's sort of like what everyone is doing is what they're doing, and in this one it was we just tried to lean into the mystery of where it was going, and then hopefully there would be conversations afterwards for anybody who had any sort of idea about what they thought it was going to be would be correct, and everybody could bring their own sort of thing to it, and hopefully in a strange way it would be a pleasing experience.
Yeah, and I also remember just examining that myself. When I read the novel, I was electrified, and often because I just had no idea where it was going in the story and the characters were up to. I was shocked and enthralled. And I find that's analogous to like when you're watching something really compelling. I mean, even if you were to make an analogy, like watching a wildlife documentary and watching beautiful wolves in the snow and sort of pack behavior, you don't know exactly why they're doing what they're doing. That's a big theme, but it's really compelling. And sometimes, you know, in movies, when you search too hard for character motivation, you know, well, I mean, it works. But in this film, and what was so exciting about it was also in real life. I don't know what the hell people are doing these days. It's really hard to figure out motivations of people all around us every day. That new cycle next door. And if you see their behavior as animal, it makes a lot more sense sometimes. You don't know it very well, you don't understand it completely, but you're familiar with it somehow, you're close to it. it can be very compelling without sort of judgment and processing it through your intellect. It's just like, what the fuck is happening? It's okay if you don't every beat.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for sticking around for a Q&A. You guys asked some really awesome questions.
Yeah, and thank you for coming. It's on Netflix, and y'all came out to see it on the big screen, which means a lot. So we really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Macon and Jeremy, for